I was never supposed to be in that meeting room. That's the part that still haunts me the most. The calendar invite wasn't addressed to me. The subject line didn't include my department. And yet, there I was sitting quietly at the far end of the glass conference room, laptop open, pretending to review notes, while my name was spoken like a problem that needed to be erased. The meeting had started 10 minutes earlier than scheduled. I arrived early because I always did. That habit, being early, being prepared, being invisible, was something I had learned years ago in my own home. No one noticed me at first. They were too busy talking. Her performance isn't the issue, someone said. It's her presence, another voice replied. She doesn't fit the direction we're heading. I felt my spine lock in place. I recognized every voice. These were the same people who praised my reports, forwarded my emails, relied on me during late-night deadlines. The same people who smiled at me in the hallway. Yet now, they were dissecting my existence like it was a strategic error. We should have let her go earlier, the senior director said calmly. She asks too many questions. Another pause. She reminds me of complications. That word landed hard. Complications. The meeting continued, methodical and cold. They discussed timelines, severance packages, messaging strategies. They talked about me like I was a malfunctioning system, not a human being who had worked there for 7 years, without missing a single performance review. And then came the sentence that broke something inside me. She doesn't know this yet, but tomorrow morning will be her last day. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I didn't even blink. Because this wasn't new. I had heard versions of this sentence before. Not in boardrooms, but around dinner tables, behind closed doors, in voices that thought I couldn't hear. Growing up, I learned early that silence was safer than defense. My parents never said they didn't want me. They didn't have to. It showed in the way my achievements were minimized, the way my mistakes were magnified, the way my younger brother's needs always came first. At 16, I overheard my mother say, "She's difficult. Always has been." At 17, my father told someone on the phone, "She figure it out. She always has to." That was the night. I packed a backpack and left with $42 and nowhere to go. No one chased me. No one called. I slept on couches. Worked 2 jobs. Finished school through scholarships and stubbornness. And I promised myself one thing. I would never again beg to belong. Years later, sitting in that conference room, I realized I had made the same mistake twice. I believed that working harder would make people respect me. That loyalty would protect me. That silence would keep me safe. The meeting ended. Chairs scraped back. People stood. Someone laughed about lunch plans. No one looked in my direction. I waited until the room emptied before I stood up. My hands were steady. My heart was not. I walked back to my desk, sat down, and stared at my screen as if nothing had happened. Around me, the office buzzed with normalcy. Emails were sent. Coffee machines hummed. People complained about traffic. And I was being erased. But something inside me had shifted. Because this time, I hadn't just been excluded. I had been informed. And knowledge changes everything. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't call anyone. I went home, opened my laptop, and began reviewing files I had touched over the years' reports, approvals, decision trails. Not with fear, with clarity. Because when you are underestimated long enough, you stop being loud. You start being precise. Patterns emerged. Small discrepancies. Unusual approvals. Decisions that didn't match policy but carried powerful signatures. Things I had questioned before and been told to drop. Things that suddenly made sense. By 2:14 a.m., I understood why they wanted me gone. I wasn't inconvenient. I was dangerous. The next morning, I walked into the office knowing exactly what would happen at 9 a.m. HR would call me upstairs. Security would stand nearby pretending not to watch. A folder would be slid across the table with words like restructuring and performance alignment. They would expect shock, tears, gratitude. What they didn't expect was preparation. At 8:57 a.m., my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Do not sign anything, the message read. They've done this before. I froze. Another message followed. You're not alone. At 9 a.m. sharp, my desk phone rang. I stood up calmly. As I walked toward the elevator, I passed the same glass conference room. The same room where my fate had been decided. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel small. I felt ready. The elevator ride felt longer than it should have. Each floor number lit up slowly, like time itself was dragging its feet, daring me to panic. I didn't. When the doors opened on the 9th floor, HR was already waiting. 2 people. Neutral expressions. A folder held like a weapon wrapped in politeness. Thank you for coming up, the HR manager said, gesturing toward the chair. I sat. They followed the script perfectly. Corporate restructuring. Changing priorities. A decision that had nothing to do with my performance. I listened quietly, nodding at the appropriate moments, just as I had listened quietly my entire life. Then they slid the folder toward me. Severance terms. A confidentiality clause. A signature line waiting for submission. This will make things easier for everyone, the manager added gently. That's when I looked up. I'm not signing this, I said. The room shifted. The second HR representative stiffened. That would be unwise. I smiled, not politely, not nervously. Just calm. I know. I stood up, closed the folder, and pushed it back across the table. There are some things you should know, I continued. And some people you should speak to before this meeting goes any further. Silence. Then my phone rang. I didn't look at the screen before answering. Yes, I said. A voice came through. Steady and authoritative. We're ready. I turned back to HR. You might want to check your email. Confusion flickered across their faces as one of them opened a laptop. Their eyes widened. At the same moment, the door opened. Not security. Not management. 2 unfamiliar figures stepped inside. Federal investigators. Badges visible. Voices calm. We're conducting an immediate inquiry, one of them said. And we need access to all financial records, executive communications, and internal audit trails. The HR manager went pale. Someone whispered my name. I didn't react. Because this moment didn't belong to fear anymore. It belonged to truth. Within an hour, the entire building felt different. Phones stopped ringing. Executives whispered behind closed doors. People who had never learned my name suddenly remembered it perfectly. By noon, the news broke. Investigations. Frozen accounts. Board-level resignations. By evening, the same people, who had planned my quiet removal, were being escorted out of the building they once ruled. I packed my things slowly. No security watching me this time. No box of shame. As I walked past my desk for the last time, co-workers stared not with pity, but with something closer to awe. Outside, the air felt lighter. That night, I went home and slept peacefully for the first time in years. No alarms. No dread. Just silence. Weeks later, the calls started. Executives asking to clarify misunderstandings. Former colleagues wanting to reconnect. People who had once ignored me suddenly remembered my value. I didn't answer. Then came the one call I never expected. My father. His voice was older. Quieter. We heard what happened, he said. You did? Well, that was all. No apology. No ownership. I realized something then. Closure doesn't come from people finally seeing your worth. It comes from no longer needing them to. I hung up gently. Today, my life looks different. Not louder. Not flashy. But solid. I work with integrity. One choose my battles. I trust my instincts. And I never sit quietly in rooms where my existence is being negotiated. Because the most tragic moment of my life, the meeting I was never meant to hear, became the moment everything finally changed.